When you raise your glass and toast to 2013, you can share your hopes for the new year and impress everyone around you by telling them exactly how champagne is made. Karen Rubin is the executive director of the Amelia Park Children's Museum in Westfield, and she joins us with the science behind champagne. Happy almost 2014, Karen.
Yes, same to you. And typically we don't do this kind of class with children.
Of course, right.
Because we're all about kids and everything, but it is a lot of fun to know how champagne is made because we have beer, we have wine. Wine is not carbonated, beer is carbonated, but champagne has that powerful punch.
We know about that. Watch out when the cork's about to pop off.
Exactly. So champagne is an extension of basically winemaking. So you have your first fermentation, which would be wine, and then the vintner would take the champagne and add yeast and sugar, a combination, to that bottle, and then put a cap on it, similar to like a beer bottle. And then they would put it in storage with the cork part down, or the cap side down.
So everything settles down at the neck of the bottle.
Exactly, because it takes a while for the yeast and sugars, after they've fermented enough in the bottle, that all the excess you want down in that neck. And there's a special job that used to be done by someone who would riddle the bottles, and that means turning them. Every day you would have to turn the bottles half a turn to make sure that you're keeping everything uniform. And the neat way of getting rid of all that sediment, for lack of a better word, is you then take all the champagne bottles, put it in a giant freezer or in liquid nitrogen, and then they take the cap off, and that little sedimentation just pops right out.
Really?
And then they add some extra liquid to it, some extra wine.
Does it freeze separately from the rest of the...
It does.
Interesting.
Because alcohol doesn't freeze, it has such a high freezing mark.
Right.
But the yeast and sugar is a solid, so that will freeze, and then it will just be forced out by pressure.
But the bubbles are in there.
In there, then you add some more to it to make it full, and then you immediately cork it.
Oh, and that's how
and then you store it, and then that will keep its carbonation.
And the carbonation is what creates the pressure
exactly,
inside the bottle.
Just like a can of soda
Right.
or a beer bottle. And the other thing is you don't want to shake it.
Right.
Because,
No.
you know, champagne is already highly carbonated.
Right.
But some other neat things, there's proper glassware too that you should use. You should never put champagne in plastic.
Really?
Because plastic resists the champagne in liquids. They're very hydrophobic. So you always want to use glass. And when you pour your champagne in a glass like this, it's so wide and broad that your bubbles will dissipate a third faster.
So are these glasses made for champagne, or are they're made for like a cordial or
They're made
a
for
liqueur?
champagne.
They are, but they're not ideal.
No, they are not ideal. And a lot of people think, oh, this is an ideal thing, but if you pour it and then you're not passing it out for another 60 seconds possibly, you've already lost a third of the bubbles. And the best part about the champagne is that effervescent feeling that when you put the glass to your nose, the bubbles are popping.
Definitely, and the bubbles can pop pretty quickly.
Exactly. So, and the bubbles get produced, you can get 30 bubbles per second in a glass of champagne.
Oh, wow, that's happening fast,
Yes.
huh? So now that's why it's ideal to have a flute, because then there's less surface area for the bubbles to pop.
Exactly.
Oh.
And then most of the champagnes that are made are used the classic method, which is this sugar and yeast. But there are some champagnes that use just carbonation. And we're going to do a little experiment later on where we're going to see what happens when you add some carbonation to a liquid, how it makes it kind of more powerful and potent.
So now these are some fun facts people can share when they're toasting with their champagne later on this evening. And also you have a picture of bubbles up close.
The bottom photo is bubbles on the top of a glass of champagne. But what I found was really interesting were when the bubbles pop, they create flower-like shapes. And this is a super high image, you know, we can't see that, you know, looking so
of course
close.
not, right.
But someone took a powerful image of this, and you can see that they look like petals on a flower when they pop.
Look at that.
So,
isn't that amazing?
It is, and I think that's really, really clever, and just a lot of fun facts behind champagne. And if you have nothing else to talk about,
well, you could talk about that, right? Talk about your bubbly. Well, that's great, Karen, and we're going to do that experiment later. We're going to open this bottle of champagne.
That's right.
We won't have to take cover, though. We'll do it the right way.
Exactly.
So cheers.
Cheers
to 2013. And the new year ahead. We'll be right back with you. Thanks so much. And we'll open that champagne. We'll toast it.
Welcome back to Mass Appeal.
We are back with Karen Rubin. She's the executive director of the Amelia Park Children's Museum in Westfield, and we're working with champagne now. Earlier we talked about the science behind champagne,
Yes.
and now we're actually going to see the cork come off, right?
Yes, but with kids, they might not be staying up late enough
Right.
to see the cork come off. So there's a fun experiment that you can do to celebrate with them, and they can have their own, big explosion also. And it's just very simple. You need a film canister or a small canister that has a lid.
Okay.
I was gonna
Water.
say, film canisters are harder to find these days.
That's
you know,
true, I
They
know.
are.
I was
They
thinking
are.
about that. When's the last time you saw a film canister?
But you can buy things at some of the local stores that you put beauty products in. That when you're traveling, something like that, you can
Oh,
use those
okay.
little types of, any type of little vial that snaps, and old-fashioned Alka-Seltzer.
Really?
Oh.
So you can add food coloring to this. You can add glitter to this. You can do all kinds of things. You can really rock this out. And so everyone's going to get a little bottle.
Okay, here we go.
So in
Keep
this
one
is
here
just
for
water.
the cameras. So it's just water, and
Water's
we're adding
in here.
Alka-Seltzer.
Now be very careful, because when we put the Alka-Seltzer in, we want to put the lid on fast and place it in front
Should
of us.
we wear safety goggles?
Yes,
Putting them on.
that's why they're there.
I have to take off my tiara. That's why they're there.
Oh, I'm just going to use my
Safety
glasses.
first.
Okay, so we have all these out here,
Yep.
and then we put the Alka-Seltzer in, then we put the lid on.
Yeah.
Oh wait, did you do mine?
No, yours
No.
is right there.
Did you put the Alka-Seltzer?
No, I
No.
did not. It's right there.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, you put it in. Oh, she put it in.
That's what
okay,
you
I guess
said.
we're
Yeah.
starting.
Yep.
Putting the lid on.
And put it over there?
And put it up here because it's going to explode.
It
and we want to
is?
be safe.
How much time roughly do we have?
About
That's so
30
fun.
seconds.
Now, what about-
maybe even more.
Oh, God.
Oh my gosh! Oh my
One
gosh!
more.
Wait, no. I have so many questions. So many questions.
That's something.
Safety goggles.
Let's do this
Exactly.
again. Let's do this thing again. Oh, we have to find the canisters. There we go.
Here's the water.
So what's the chemical reaction behind it?
This is carbonation, just like your champagne.
Okay.
It's that force pushing the top off, and there was a lid right
And it
I
doesn't,
have a
it
lid
doesn't
here.
make too much of a mess, right?
Oh.
It's just water.
It's just water, but if you put food coloring in and put glitter in for the kids, you go outside at like 8 o'clock.
outside.
Or
Not in your
deck.
kitchen. No,
Yeah, you don't want to do it in the
Don't do this in your kitchen.
And then they can all set these off, and it's kind of like their fireworks, their yay, they can do their horns.
Oh my.
Gets you every time.
It gets me. I'm so sorry. I keep yelling. I'm so scared.
But it's exciting, and it's
That's
so
really
simple.
exciting.
Oh, it is exciting. It is
And
very
so-
exciting.
And another thing with the cork, once you loosen that, you always want to aim it away from you
And also away
Especially
from
under
the
these
cameras.
lights.
and
I'm very
away from the
nervous.
camera.
Okay, let's just
Because
get this
the
done with.
force of the carbonation is pretty strong, so sometimes
Be
the
careful.
cork can just fly off
Now,
on its
can
own.
the best way to do it is to push it like this so it
I don't know.
rolls out.
Yay. I keep
Very
yelling.
good.
I'm so nervous right
Might
now.
have just taken a light out.
So many explosions.
Here we are.
And now we want to make sure we use a glass like this and
A
not
flute that's glass, but for today it was
So Karen,
just plastic.
you may have
but you can
answered
see all
this.
those bubbles.
Gosh, I need to come down from
Hey,
this.
real quick, Penguin Plunge coming up, right?
Yes, January 25th.
All right.
Hampton
January
Palms.
25th.
Hampton
So
Palms.
It'll be
everybody.
here before we know it, isn't it?
I know, and it will be my second plunge.
Oh, and you're doing it
And
again?
I'm doing it again.
You know, I'm nominating Ashley
You
to
go,
do it
girl.
this year.
All right, happy New Year's
Happy
Eve. Here's to you, Karen Rubin, and here's to you.
Here's
Up
to
next,
Seth and Ashley.
we're going to take a look back at the top 10